Hi, evening. Welcome everybody to UK Edu Stories. Really excited to be back actually on the air live tonight, Bookie. Thank you so much. I was a bit under the weather last week. I'm getting back to being a bit more with it and things this week. But thank you so much to Bookie for hosting the show last week. It was a fantastic show. I really enjoyed hearing from our guest last week. I was around, but I was all coffee and all these sort of things. So it wasn't a good look for, well, it might just have worked for radio, but definitely not for public consumption. So thanks so much, Bookie, for taking the reins last week. How has your week been, Bookie? How are you?
Well, I'm still continuing to take things slow. Autumn is my favourite season of the year, but since the 1st of October, I just feel like I just want to sleep all the time. So we've just had lots of rain. It's cooler than it was before, a downturn in the weather. So yeah, a bit of a shock, but still busy. As you know, I'm always involved. So during the weekend, as part of Women Ed Tech, I undertook a presentation as part of the Women Ed Unconference, and one of our guests also featured in that. And I know that their particular session was very popular and well received. I also am engaging as part of the Reimagining Diary project that's run by Dr. Lucy Kelly and Martin Rea as part of Teacher 5 a Day. And that's just looking at journaling, different ways of journaling to, aid your well-being. And I did a Sec Ed podcast interview a few weeks ago with people that you'd know, including Al Kingsley, and that was shared live today. So yeah, quite a number of things actually happening as the weather turned a little bit cooler. How have you been? It was good to see you back first and foremost. I'm glad that you are recovered from where you were last week. How's your week been?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Lots of sort of planning and preparation. I'm doing work with a few companies. I've got the Learn Live UAE conference next Friday, which is quite an early start, and it's on a Friday. But if you are around and want to attend a conference for free with lots of fantastic speakers, just because it's got a UAE focus, teaching and learning is the same the world over. So we've got our teaching, learning and leadership conference next Friday, but I've been doing things talking with guests, which is an event similar to BET, which takes place in Dubai every beginning of March. We've been talking with them this week, with Century Tech, with a whole bunch of people. Mentioning Al Kingsley, actually, today I've been preparing a course that I'm delivering with him for people to get into, looking at supporting schools around creating digital strategy. So that was planning today, and then recordings tomorrow. So keep them peeled for that one. Loads and loads of things going on, but I'm really excited about tonight because I'm really passionate about using Twitter as a form of professional learning. I think you probably agree with me, Bookie. I don't think I'd be doing what I do now if it wasn't for how I started engaging and using social media and Twitter way back when. And so it's really great that tonight we've got two guests, people who I massively respect and rate, and call friends as well. I'm really pleased and excited to be able to welcome onto the show today Dr. Jill Berry and Simon Johnson, because we're exploring how to use social media for professional development. So super happy and really excited to welcome them both onto the show this evening. And with that sort of introduction, shall I bring our first guest onto the show?
Yes, please, Mark. Yes.
Can we do that?
Yes.
Okie dokie. Brilliant stuff. Well, here we go. Welcome to the show, Dr. Jill Berry. Welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Bookie, for asking me.
Okay, well, lovely. Thank you for accepting as well, actually, and for sharing your wisdom and insights with our audience.
Before I ask you to introduce yourself, Jill, do you like to be called Dr. Jill or just Jill? So the last time I saw you, we were working together at a school in the Netherlands, in The Hague, weren't we? And it wasn't Dr. Jill then. So is it Dr. Jill or is it Jill that we call you now? Or
I'm usually called Jill. I have to say, Bookie always calls me Dr. Jill, and I call her Young Bookie. But I don't know why that started. But yeah, I did a doctorate finished in 2016. But I don't use the title a huge amount. But I don't mind. I'm quite easygoing about it, Mark.
Okay.
Brilliant. Well, for our guests who don't know you, would you mind just taking a moment just to explain who you are and what it is that you do and some of your experience in education?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm a former teacher and a former head. I was a head for 10 years until 2010. And then since I finished as head in 2010, which was the end of my 30th year in the profession, working across 6 different schools, I did my doctorate. And the subject of my doctorate was the research into the transition from deputy headship to headship. I wrote a book about it called Making the Leap, Moving from Deputy to Head. And I'm involved in developing leaders at all levels. So I do a lot of work with aspiring and serving leaders, which I really enjoy. And I have to say, I spend a disproportionate amount of time on Twitter.
But that's one of the things I absolutely love about the work that you do, Jill, because you really do elevate. And clearly, you really read an awful lot of blog posts that are shared by teachers, resources that are shared by teachers. You read a lot of books. You read the TES, and you. But what you do which is such a lovely thing to do as well, is you really do take the time to notice the work that teachers are doing, the sharing that they do on a personal level, and coupling this with some thanks. You read nearly everything that I write, and you find that the highlights, and you share that with other people. And I know anytime I want to sort of get some inspiration on Twitter myself, I always know that if I go to your Twitter timeline, I'll always find something new, interesting, innovative, really collegiate and supportive and helpful. So I absolutely love your Twitter account, Jill, and I think that really reflects sort of the way that you. So I know you personally and digitally, I guess, but you come across as being the same person online as you are in real life, and you really do support so many teachers. And I suspect Bookie will back me up on this. We haven't had this conversation beforehand, but I suspect she'll back me up in to say, what you do to support teachers is absolutely fantastic. Would you agree, Bookie?
Absolutely, genuinely. That's the reason why, first of all, one of the very first time that I met Jill in real life, I was fangirling. I've actually shared this anecdote before, and I'm so in awe of what you do, and had my fangirl moment. But I think just to resonate with what Mark said about the fact that you're one of the educators that actually takes the time to read through different features, articles. It doesn't matter who it is as well. You share the golden nuggets in your timeline so that other people who they may not have time to read the book, article, or whatever it is you're actually highlighting, but they can actually get a sense of what it's about from what you actually share. And I think that's so generous and it's great. So thank you for that as well.
Well, thank you both. But I have to say, it's really enjoyable. It's a privilege to share some of the brilliant stuff that there is out there. And I do have the time. I think of myself as being in the post-career phase of my life. So I started using Twitter in 2011, having finished my headship in 2010. And I do have time. And I use Twitter every day. And it's a privilege to share some of the brilliant stuff that there is out there. So I do read quite a lot, and I tweet, as you say, extracts, links, just to help people who are far more pressured in their use of time than I am. So it's a pleasure to do that. And it has led to some great friendships. It's led to all sorts of opportunities, but it's also led to friendships, people who I initially engaged with online, and then I met at events. I think we met at a Teach Meet London, Bookie,
that's right,
in the early days, and it's been a wonderful experience. So I have gained as much as I've given, definitely.
Fantastic, wonderful. Well, in that case, would you mind just explaining, because obviously we're looking at social media for professional development. How would you define professional development? What does it mean to you?
I think we're engaging in professional development when we do anything that is about our own learning, that we are trying to focus on how we can build our expertise or our confidence in whatever area of education is relevant. So it might be a structured course or going to a conference or a program. It might just be engaging in educational reading or sharing debate and ideas on Twitter. Listening to podcasts, online webinars like this one, anything which causes you to reflect, to think and rethink about your practice, to move forward in your understanding. And that could be understanding of your subject area. It might be to do with pedagogy, it might be pastoral care and support, it might be leadership. Leadership is the area that I'm particularly interested in. So any aspect of your professional practice which you are able to develop, you're able to learn more, then for me that's professional learning, and you might be completely in control of it, or someone else might be providing opportunities for you.
Okay. Right, thank you for that extensive answer.
Brilliant, thank you, Jill. You've mentioned the T word, Twitter, quite a lot, but are there any other social media platforms that you use to engage with professionally at all? And if you could, you talk about how you use those as well, please?
Yeah, and Twitter is the main one I spend most time on. I also do use LinkedIn just to connect with an even wider network of people. They're not all in education, but basically if anyone sends me a LinkedIn request, I will accept it, because it can lead to opportunities that you can't necessarily foresee. So my LinkedIn network is quite broad, but I tend to use it reactively. So I don't go into LinkedIn that often, but if I'm involved in something like this, I will post it on LinkedIn just to get the word out there. If I write something, a new blog or an article, then I'll post about that on LinkedIn. And it's led to some interesting things. You know, a former student I taught English to back in the early 90s, who's now a teacher in Switzerland, she contacted me through LinkedIn, and it was really great to hear from her. So you never know really what it might lead to. I also use Facebook, but that's really personal. It's social, it's friends, family. If someone sends me a Facebook request, but it's someone that actually I don't really know well, we haven't met in real life, I will normally say, actually, Facebook isn't the right vehicle here. Use LinkedIn, use Twitter. So it's a great way of keeping in touch with former students. A lot of my Facebook contacts are students who have been in schools that I've taught, and many of them are girls and women, because 3 of my 6 schools were girls' schools, and they are developing into amazing young women doing all sorts of brilliant things, and Facebook is the way in which I keep in touch with them. So LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter, but mainly Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with that, because I use Twitter heavily, and I've also heard a lot of educators who use Facebook. Have you heard the same as well, Mark? That use Facebook for personal, and it's nothing at all to do with their roles. So it's quite interesting to hear how some people use the platforms distinctively in that regard.
A lot of people do that. And that's my approach to it as well. I say most of the people that I connect with on Facebook are people that I've engaged with and you know, have had a personal engagement with, rather than just everybody that I, you know, who just sends me requests through. But it's interesting because there are some really fantastic groups for educators on Facebook, and some people, people who have been sharing for quite some time, for example, on these different platforms, sort of do gravitate more to one than the other. So an example of that might be Lee Parkinson, Mr. P, ICT. And he puts an awful lot of content, although mostly comedy about education, but he does share an awful lot of stuff predominantly on Facebook. He's obviously got a huge following on Twitter as well, but Facebook is his sort of key way to share out to people. So it is interesting because there are some really good educational groups on Facebook, but you can engage in those educational groups aside from your actual sort of friendship side of Facebook, can't you? It's a different sort of thing. So yeah, it is interesting. Putting it back to you, Bookie, actually, I see you making fantastic use of LinkedIn, getting really good and you put my LinkedIn usage to shame with the output that you put on LinkedIn.
Well, I'll be honest. I think I've been on LinkedIn since about 2012. And I didn't know what to do with it. Someone said, join LinkedIn. It's really good, for your professional development. Join LinkedIn, didn't know how it worked, didn't know what to do, didn't know how to engage or anything. But as part of, in fact, a training course I was on, this was probably about maybe 2 or 3 years ago, there weren't that many people signed up. So it was basically myself, and I think maybe another person, and the trainer, round lunch, just talk about general things. And we happened to talk about LinkedIn, and he said about how he mentioned how he used it. So I asked him for advice and said, how are you meant to use LinkedIn? So he gave me some tips, which I have since used, and it has worked. And so those tips basically involve, he says that if he's ever delivering training, he mentions it. and he gives people an opportunity to contact him about it. And there were some other things as well that he said, but I've developed it since that, you know, for example, if I go to events, I might just say, you know, share some of my own personal learning from it, or, you know, key messaging, things like that. I just use it in various ways, but I like it because Twitter is fun and you can engage in some silly conversations, but still be professional. LinkedIn, as you mentioned, Jill, is a very much a professional context, and you network with a broad range of professionals beyond education. So everything there is pretty much professional. There's no, you know, I share my blog links and things like that. It just gives, it's like a live CV. So Hannah Wilson, when I spoke to her about how she uses it, she said that she uses it as a live CV, and I use it in a similar way as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way to sort of put it across. So bring another question to you, Jill, please, because I want to keep it focused on you rather than me and Boogie talk about our stuff.
Exactly. Fine, that's fine. It's good to hear.
As someone who sort of sees himself sort of post-career, how do you think Twitter, seeing that's your sort of main platform, how has that helped with your professional development post-career? Because learning's lifelong, obviously. So how has Twitter helped you and aided your professional development as someone who's you know, taught for many years, led for many years, and doing the work you do now? How has it helped you?
I think I'm still very interested in learning. I'm still very interested in education. When I was coming to the end of my 30-year career, I thought perhaps I would like to do something with my time that's nothing to do with education. And then I realized actually education is something I'm still passionate about. I know about, I have expertise that I can share. So it's the people I connect with, they're all educators in some capacity. Many of them, as I say, I've now met face to face and know quite well. But it's led to some great opportunities for me. It's led to some paid work because I still work as a consultant. But it's led to some really interesting and engaging activity. I mean, Women Ed is a great example. I've loved what I've done through Women Ed and the people that I've met and the things I've been able to become involved in. But I've learned such a lot. I'm still, it's over 40 years since I stepped into a classroom to teach my first lesson, but there's still so much to learn about teaching, about leadership, about education in all its forms. And Twitter has been a great source of professional learning for me. It helps me to clarify my thinking. It helps me sometimes to rethink things I thought. And it keeps me fresh and well informed and up to date and inspired. It lifts me.
Okay, fantastic.
Can
I ask a question? Sorry, Mark, because I can. Beyond the pandemic, I mean, this is something that Mark actually alluded to earlier on. What do you think has actually led to an increase of educators exploring their professional development opportunities through social media platforms?
I mean, obviously, social media platforms are brilliant for those who feel isolated in some way. If you are geographically remote, if you're in a school where you feel not many people share your philosophy of education and you want to connect with people who do, social media is brilliant. So this year, when we haven't been able to make face-to-face contact with people, I think social media has come into its own. Obviously, in schools, people have had to master remote learning and think about online pedagogy in terms of their relationship with their students. And the other side of that is using that same online framework for their own professional learning. So I've done quite a lot of work this year with groups online that I might have done face to face. I wrote a blog about it recently, about online learning, how I use it, what I think the benefits are. And I suspect that post-pandemic, when we come out the other side of this, a lot of this will continue because actually using these platforms for professional learning, it's time efficient and it's cost effective. So wherever we can engage with learning online, I think we'll continue to do that. But I think that will work alongside the face-to-face stuff. So it will be a hybrid model. And I think that's probably the right way forward. So I think beyond the pandemic, there are things we've learned through how we've had to navigate COVID that we will continue, and we will build on those to strengthen education provision.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, Jill, you and I are involved in an event next month, actually, with IAPS, aren't we? That was originally going to be a face-to-face event, but is now going to be an online event. And I think the point you make there about taking the best of both worlds and adopting a hybrid approach to it is a really, really clever way to think about it. Because before, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, but often there's been sometimes some sort of reluctance to engaging sort of online ways of doing things, like we have had to under the pandemic, purely because of issues of confidence and worry about whether it would work. But the pandemic has actually thrown us into a place where we've had to sort of grasp that opportunity.
Do it.
Yeah. You know. So it's really interesting that we're seeing so much more of this, and I think it's for the better as well. Even just thinking on a basic level about things like carbon footprints and what have you. You know, just reducing down the time for traveling for meetings and all those different things. It's a huge benefit. I've got another question for you, Jill. Beyond, this one here is about people who don't engage with social media. Lots of people, you know, nearly everyone I speak to who engages in using Twitter for professional development, you know, raves about it, says it's brilliant, you know, really can really clearly see the benefits of using it. But the truth of the matter is that the number of teachers who do use Twitter is tiny in comparison to the number of teachers there are in the profession, just in the UK, for example. What do you think prevents educators sort of engaging with social media, do you think?
I think I would just say that it's growing all the time, and I think this year it has grown significantly because, again, people are engaging online because they can't engage in person. I think sometimes people think they don't have time for it. I only started tweeting in 2011 as I finished my headship in 2010. We weren't really talking about Twitter for education when I was ahead, I don't think, but I think I would have said I don't have the time for this. In actual fact, I always say that judiciously used, Twitter will save you time.
Yes,
but you have to use it well, and you have to be quite disciplined about it. I think one reason that I'm less interested in spending a lot of time on LinkedIn and Facebook is that I do spend the time on Twitter. And I have a life as well. So I think you have to pace yourself through it. So thinking about time, I'm not a great fan of notifications generally. I don't want my phone constantly to be pinging and directing my behavior. You know, you've got a message, something's come up. So I don't tend to use notifications. And I always say to people, if you want to use Twitter for education and you also use it in your personal life, keep 2 separate accounts. Because there will be time perhaps in the holidays where you don't even want to think about school. So you don't want to be checking Twitter for social reasons and then things are popping up about the latest Ofsted framework or whatever it might be. Keep the 2 things separate. I think people do hear about some of the negativity on Twitter, some of the arguments, and that puts them off. And I worry that sometimes people try and they get a hostile reaction to something or they get criticism and they just withdraw because they don't want to put themselves through that. And I know you have another question about this, but I would say there are ways that you can navigate that to make sure that Twitter is a positive experience for you. So I think there are various reasons that people might be put off. But my advice to anybody, and whenever I do any training and I have a captive audience, I will bang on about Twitter. I'm a bit of an evangelist, I think. And I will say, if you don't use it, can you sit down with someone who does, together with their laptop or tablet or whatever it is, and just get them to show you how they use it, why they use it, and talk to you about what they get from it. I've recommended it to people who've come back to me a week later to say, Jill, this has transformed my professional practice. Because I'm engaging with people, I'm sharing questions, I'm getting responses, I'm swapping resources. This is really useful and it's saving me time. So you need to talk to people who are regular users and listen to them and their experience and try it. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you, but at least you've tried it. You've made an informed decision rather than just a blinkered one.
Yeah,
I agree. We've got a comment from one of our viewers, actually, Sarah Hazel, who joins us regularly. So welcome and thank you. Hi, Sarah. Thank you for the welcome back to the show earlier in the show as well. But she says, I have to say, I've had more CPD in the last 6 months than I've had in the last 10 years. I've been in teaching largely through Twitter. It sort of reinforces the points that you're sharing with us, Jill. And she also goes on to say, I was able to attend conferences online that I would never have been able to before due to work, family commitments and so forth and so on. In fact, I remember Sarah, Bookie, you were involved in this as well. We did the Frog Conference during the summer holidays. And Sarah actually joined our live conference from somewhere in the Mediterranean. And we had a selfie competition.
Oh, was that her? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that. Oh, okay. Hi, Sarah.
Behind it. So, like you say, it gives you that opportunity to tap into all these things, regardless of geography and all these different things, which is why I'm able to do that same sort of show with Ollie and things in the UAE as well. There's so many opportunities that are brought and available to us, aren't there?
There are. Can I just add as well? Oh, sorry. Can I just also add one thing that I learned through this whole, I suppose, lockdown experience is the fact that there are some people who prior to the pandemic and prior to COVID-19 had to socially distance, so they weren't able to go to live events. So this is their, they could only try and attend conferences if they were held online. And as you said before, Mark, there weren't that many. So I think in a way it's great because it's given more opportunities for people, from a range, I suppose, range backgrounds, maybe learning needs, etc., to be engaged as well. And as you say, hopefully that will continue to be part of the norm in a hybrid model with face-to-face and virtual online experiences.
Yeah, a couple of things that occurred to me. One is that I think the great thing about Twitter, I think, is that you are in control of your professional learning and you can discriminate. You decide what you want to spend time on. You decide who you want to engage with. You decide what you want to follow up. So you decide what's useful for you, and that directs your learning. And the second thing, just picking up your point there, Bucky, when I think about my networks, they are so much more diverse and inclusive than they ever were before the days of social media. I look around at a Women Ed event and I think there are people here who are so unlike me. They haven't had lives like me, and yet I'm connecting with them, I'm listening to them, I respect them, I'm learning from them. So I think in terms of diversity and inclusion, social media has been just superb. It's transformed my life, I'd
ditto
say.
Yeah, I totally agree, and ditto with that. I think I'm going to ask one last question, if I may. Is that okay? Because we've been speaking to you for quite a while, Jules. But
that's fine. Yeah, Simon will be nodding off in the green room.
So when it comes to professional development within a virtual space, no matter which particular platform an educator uses, what type of things should an educator actually look out for that will help them identify, I suppose, good quality professional development that will actually aid them, so they'll learn something new, it will move their profession, like developments forward, rather than something that's not very, worthwhile? What type of things should they look out for?
I think it's about listening to recommendations, really, and sharing views with other people. So a lot of people, you ask questions on Twitter and you get a significant number of responses, don't you? Obviously, there are things you can try. You try reading a blog, and if you like it, you think, yeah, I like what she has to say, I'm going to subscribe to that blog. You start watching a podcast or listening to a podcast, watching a webinar. Within 5 minutes, you think, yeah, this is telling me something useful, or, no, I'm going to be discriminating because I think I can make better use of my time. One of the reasons I do recommend links, books, blogs, is to give people some indication of, I think this will be worth reading, spending time on, or actually that isn't so relevant. So I've just finished Matthew Evans, Leaders with Substance. I've tweeted quite a lot from that. It's a long book with lots of good stuff in it. It gives people a taste, but it also helps them decide, yes, I would like to buy that book, I would like to read that book, I'd like to use it with other people. So recommendations, I would say, are great. Thank
you so much, Jill.
Thank you, Bucky.
Thank you so much for your responses, Jill. As Bucky mentioned, we've got Simon in the green room, so I think it's probably about time we brought Simon in to join us. Otherwise it's just going to be the Mark, Jill and Bucky show tonight. And viewers, he rushed down his tea, he came into the green room, he was still eating his pasta, but I think he's had a chance for all of that to sort of die down now. It gives me great pleasure, actually, to welcome Simon onto the show. I've known Simon for a very, very long time. And I'm not going to sort of steal his thunder and talk about his profession and his experience in education. I'll let him do that. But he is an absolute star as far as I'm concerned. So it gives me real pleasure to welcome Simon Johnson, also known as AKA CLC Simon, to UK Edu Stories. Welcome, Simon. How are you?
Hi, Simon. Oh, can't hear
you. Mute.
I think you got yourself muted, Simon.
Apologies.
Oh, great.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Though when you say you've known me for a long time, it makes me feel very, very old. But no, thank you.
It's me with the grey hair.
I'll get in a few now. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this chat. And yeah, thank you for inviting me. I feel highly honoured, especially in the presence of Dr. Jill, Bucky, and yourself.
Thanks, Simon.
Oh, bless you, Liz. I mean, Simon, he'll hide his light under a bushel. But I mean, just taking CasChat as an example, Simon, how long has CasChat been going? Can you just sort of share a little bit about your involvement with CasChat, please, and what it is for viewers?
Yeah, so I formerly was an ICT and computing teacher, and like many teachers, I struggled in my first year. Even though I had a degree in computer science, teaching what I did in my undergraduate course to year sevens was a challenge. So off the back of that, myself and a guy called Andy Colley put together a chat every Tuesday night just to support other teachers with the computing curriculum and helping them on their journey. And just started off as a weekly chat. It's now been going for 5 years now, and we just celebrated our 200th chat.
Wow. See, okay. Wow.
Just, do you make any money from this, Simon? Is this an endeavour that no? And that's the point I'm making, really. So many people are giving of their time. Like Jill, she's doing these recommendations and sharing the books and blogs and podcasts she's listening to, and admittedly, it's led to some work and it's good in that regard. But like all of us, I think none of us got into sharing and doing the things we do to make any money. It's always been about sort of amplifying, supporting, and sharing and helping each other. And that's what's so brilliant with the things that you're involved with, Simon. Say CasChat's been going for a very long time. It's helped me with lots of things, and the network's grown massively, hasn't it?
It has, and I know the term sharing is caring can be a bit cliche, but it is. It's just about giving back. And we've got a fantastic community. It keeps on growing and growing, which is great. And it's great to see new teachers as well on a similar journey that I had when I started, and finding it useful and helping them along their journey.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, Simon, for those members of our audience who don't know you, would you mind introducing yourself formally and just sharing what you do, in what capacity that you work?
Yes. So my name is Simon Johnson. I'm a former ICT and computing teacher. Although, despite what my youthful looks will show you, I've been in the education sector for more than 20 years. I started as an IT manager in a school, and I worked as an education advisor at a football club. I won't mention the name at the moment. And then I moved on to become a college tutor, and then went into teaching. I've recently left teaching, and I'm now a consultant. And I support teachers with moving to the cloud and other things like that.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I didn't realise you'd been teaching for more than 20 years. Wow.
I'm starting to show it now a little bit.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so if I may, I'll ask the same question to you as I did to Jill earlier. How do you define professional development?
So it's all about improving your practice. It's about improving your craft. But I think essentially it's about helping to create outstanding, I hate the word outstanding, but create outstanding learning experiences for your students. And as I think echo what Jill said, anything that leads to reflective practice as well and helps you to improve, become a better person and a better teacher.
Okay, thank you. I love what you said about improving the craft, because being a teacher is about craft, isn't it, really? And actually just taking time. It does take a long while just to find your way and actually to establish what works for you, as well as what works in terms of aiding the progress and attainment of your student as well. So that's a particular reason why I actually love that that term.
No, I agree too. I've got a question for you, Simon, and this links into something we were sort of mentioned with Jill before as well, actually. But I wanted to reference some of the resources that you make as well, because the question I'll ask you is about sort of what social media platforms can teachers use for professional learning. Yeah. But Simon, you create quite a few little infographics that are exceedingly popular. Which are really, really helpful to people new to learning about how to use different social media platforms. I connected with Jill recently because I was working at the University of Worcester with the PGCE students, and we had a conversation about that because I took one of your infographics and used it in my presentation to the students. And it was a day where someone accused me of breaking Edu Twitter because there were so many tweets from all of these PGCE students starting. But these infographics that you make, Simon, are absolutely fantastic. And I know you might have some of those ready to share on your screen in just a moment. But before we get into that, what professional learning can take place on social media? And what sort of platforms can you find teachers on? Can you get professional learning from Instagram and Facebook and all the ones that are available from your experience?
Well, if it's okay with you, I've got an infographic just ready for you to share. I'll just share that now.
Okay.
And this one here.
Okay. Not come up at this side quite yet.
No, not yet.
While Simon's just bringing that up, I'm just going to just jump into some of the comments from the audience this evening. We've got a lovely comment again from Sarah saying how lovely it is that people like us are sort of being generous with our time and sharing with others and things. We've got a lovely comment here to me, actually, talking about pointing out Pixabay. But these things like sharing resources like websites like Pixabay or Unsplash or how to do X, Y, and Z with a certain tool, these are all things that it's not common to me. It's not like I'm particularly special. It's just that when I saw that particular question, we just share, People often talk about Twitter as being like the best staff room in the world and things, don't they? And I think it's called that because people are so willing to give it their time and share and be collegiate and all these different things. So not to ramble on too long. Now, how are you getting on, Simon?
Right. If you can't see that, don't worry. Can you not see it?
No.
It's come up on the bottom here yet. No, I can't bring that into the screen yet. Would you like me to bring up one of your infographics from your Twitter or something instead?
You could do.
Which one are you looking for?
So it's my PLN one. So it's my new PLN. I'll just try one more time. If not, I'll just talk through it. I don't think I saw it there then. So Chrome tab and social CPD. There we go. Try that. Can you see that?
Yes, it's coming up.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. There we go. And it's on screen. Fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah, so I absolutely love my social media, as you can see. There's more than you probably think, and it's probably unhealthy to actually follow all of these. But probably the key ones in there that I use regularly, and I know you'll ask the question later, but one of my top tips is to choose which platform suits you. If you're already using one of those platforms, stick to that platform. So I started on Twitter. I use that, as Mark will know and Jill will know and Bucky, I use that most often. The reason why I use that most often is because it's the first one I really picked up. I used Facebook a lot previous, but then I kind of thought of Facebook as just a tool to look up your ex and your old flames from school or university and snooping. So I didn't really get it. I do now. And I picked up Twitter because interesting story. I actually entered a competition at TES and I won. And they said, "Oh, you need to tell us your Twitter handle." I thought, I haven't got one of those. Ooh. So I had to sign up to Twitter. I used to think Twitter was for, well, I'm not going to use the word. I'll let you work out the fill in the gap with the correct alliteration. But I just thought it was for sharing food and sharing selfies. But then I came across, because when you start up Twitter, it tells you to follow some people, and I just happened to follow Mark Anderson, who's trending at the time, and Teacher Toolkit, and I started to learn so much. Some of the resources they're sharing and pedagogy and classroom tips, it really helped me in my first year of teaching. But probably the key ones, probably a Facebook. Although I use Twitter and I take part in chats a lot, chats are great. Especially if you take part in subject-related chats. There's a primary rocks on a Monday night, which is fantastic. Get lots of advice. Everyone's really kind and helpful and supportive. But Facebook, I know that Bucky mentioned Facebook, Mr. P used it a lot, but there's some really great Facebook groups. I think I'm a member of about 20 different Facebook groups. I don't use it as much as I do on Twitter, because Twitter is a tool that I have open every day and I use and I look at when I come back from work. But Facebook, I do pick up every now and again on the weekends, and I'll drop into the groups, and I actually get more engagement and get more ideas from Facebook than I do from Twitter. It's just I use Twitter more as an application. But there's also tools like WhatsApp, and there's Voxer. So most of people have got WhatsApp, and I've known of teachers, and I've joined a couple of these groups that have set up their own WhatsApp communities between themselves, where they can share best practice, because they're using WhatsApp every single day. And Voxer is just like WhatsApp, but it's more of an American one. But the reason why I use that is because it gives me access to a new audience and new ways of thinking. And that's what the great thing with social media, that ability to communicate with people, not just in your area, your bubble, or even your geographic location, but for people from all over the world with new ideas. And it's great to refresh and freshen up teaching and your professional development.
Yeah.
But I said, Bucky's mentioned LinkedIn. I don't use it as much, but even Instagram and also Pinterest. When I first started, I used to get great ideas from Pinterest. Especially classroom presentations and ideas for wall displays. So there's tons of tools out there, lots of social media tools that you can use. And as I said, you just pick the one that you're already using and then make the best of that tool.
Okay, sorry, I'm just taking it in because I'm just listening. I was reflecting on my own practice. So, for example, Pinterest, I absolutely love, but the problem with it is the fact that it's a time suck for me. So as soon as I go on it, 3 hours can easily go by. And all I've done is just, like maybe download some images or it's great. But I have to avoid that one. So anyway, I actually need to ask my next question. But thanks for sharing the different.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing that name. Yeah.
Sorry?
I'll stop sharing that picture now. Go on, carry on.
Okay. Yeah, no, but thanks for sharing the different platforms you actually use. And I think that's one of the reasons how I got to know you, Simon. The fact that as Mark mentioned, the different infographics that you had and tips as well for educators who are new as to what they should actually do. You even wrote some blogs as well, didn't you? Quite lengthy pieces. So it was a step-by-step guide, which I thought was very generous, considering, as you know, you're just giving it for the love of sharing to the other educators who find themselves in similar positions you may have found themselves in can actually benefit from it. But I just wanted to ask another question. Yeah, have you seen what's been the most innovative way in which you've seen, say, social media platforms, anyone being used for professional development of educators?
So I mentioned WhatsApp. I know a lot of teachers are setting up WhatsApp book clubs, WhatsApp research. So there's a lot of work going on at the moment around pedagogy, especially in computing, best ways to teach computing, different ideas. And there are groups using social media to research this and test this in their classroom and then share this with educators.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I was going to ask, WhatsApp I'd never thought of. Is that because it's more closed in that regard? Or because, like you've got people who know each other anyway, who are collaborating?
I think it's the same with like Facebook. A lot of people disregard Facebook because it's their kind of their family and friends, and it's their kind of like their personal application, whereas Twitter is more business minded. And I think the same idea with WhatsApp. People disregard WhatsApp or Voxer because it's their personal application where they contact their friends. But what I say is, if it's an application that you use every day and you pick it up at the end of the day, if then you can use that with safely with friends that you know and colleagues and develop these learning networks, then once you've picked up your phone and contact your friends and family, you can just press another tab and then take part in another chat or pick up from ideas. So it's all about using the tools you already have. But people, answering your question, people sometimes disregard that because it's their personal device or personal platform, for relationships, family and friends, rather than professional.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Simon. Apologies for going off piste a bit here, but this I'm going to give you both a question now, which isn't on the list. Sorry, but
that's the code.
No, I know. Sorry. But I'm hoping to catch you in rather than catch you out. But Jill, you talked about not being a sort of a slave. These aren't your words, but sort of being a slave to notifications and that sort of thing. And you're talking about WhatsApp. Most people tend to use things like WhatsApp. And I'm a Voxer user as well, Simon. So I've been using it for a long time because it's great. It's like a portable walkie-talkie, isn't it? Yeah, it's great for having voice conversations. And Bookie must be a Voxer user as well for that
Definitely,
reason.
yes.
But with workload and teachers being under so much pressure at the moment, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here, but can you both give me a bit of advice, please? Because there can be often a big blurring of lines between personal and professional. How or what advice would you give to people who are thinking, oh, what's that? That could work for a book club at school, or something. Have you got any advice? I'll come to you first, Jill, on how to best manage that sort of thing in terms of the blurring of lines between sort of like home and work and work-life balance and all of those sorts of things. Have you got any advice you can share around that at all, Jill, about how you manage those sorts of things?
Yeah, I think it's one of the issues that we've had to deal with in 2020, because the boundary between home and work has evaporated for lots of people.
Yeah.
So their kitchen table now is also their workspace, and I think that can lead to feelings of stress and feeling overwhelmed. It's all about finding balance. Life is all about finding balance and being in control of it. So you decide when you need personal time, when you're not going to think about school, you're not going to engage with education platforms, and then times when you are. So it's about almost compartmentalizing. I've always been quite good at compartmentalizing. I mean, I worked incredibly hard, especially as a head. Although I love being a head, it was the best job I did. But I was able to say, right, this weekend or today or next week, I'm not going to read an education book or check my emails, because I need time to refresh and re-energize if I'm going to be able to do my job as well as it needs to be done. So we need to recognize that the people who are most effective are not the people who work the hardest or the longest or who work to the exclusion of all else, because we have to find balance in our lives for our own mental well-being as much as anything else. So make choices. You decide. That's why I don't like the notifications. I don't want a ping to tell me when I should stop what I'm doing to check something else. I want to decide that. And I have to say, I find it quite disturbing when you're out and about and you see groups of people and they're all on their phones. And I just want to say, be with the ones you're with. The people who live their lives on Facebook, who don't seem able to experience anything without photographing, sharing it, commenting on it. So let social media be our servant and not our master, I think, and exercise agency and control and choices so that it is in its place and it's not taking over and it's not making you feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, sorry, if I can add to that, sorry. I was pulling a face because I've been told off by members of my nearest and dearest for not being present, but, look at this and what have you, or taking photographs and things like that. So they told me quite firmly and fairly, this is, when we're doing this, that, but otherwise you're present. So yeah, so again, it's about making choices. I think some people find it easier than others, but you're right. It's about finding what works for you in that regard and sticking to that, yeah.
Sorry, that's Mark. Never ever happened to me, Bookie. Never happened to me. Simon, did you have anything to add on to there about how you can sort of manage all of these things as well?
Yeah, I'd echo exactly what Jill said, and I was accused by my wife, as she told me once, that I love Twitter more than her. So I was in the doghouse or the cat house, and I did get addicted. And I think probably top tip is I now select a day or 2 days a week where I am actively on social media, and the rest I kind of like dip in and out. So Tuesday night because of my chats, and then also on a Thursday night, those are when I'm most active. Also, use tools like Hootsuite and TweetDeck. Hootsuite's great. It's a social bookmarking tool to actually link all your accounts. And so a touch of a button on a Thursday, you could open it up, see all of your streams from Twitter, from Facebook, and Instagram, and all your other channels, and quickly just catch up. And a nice way to bookmark and manage those as well. And for the third tip is, I agree with Jill with notifications. And so one thing you can do is turn your notifications off. You don't need it. You don't need your phone vibrating every 5 minutes. But also, as you start to build up connections as well, especially worldwide, you're working with different time zones. So I used to start getting notifications at 3 o'clock in the morning from the States. So what I've done is I've set my do not disturb on my phone. So after 10:30 at night, I'll still get notifications, but I won't hear them because my phone goes silent, but I'll still get emergency calls if I need them. So,
yeah.
And like Jill says, manage that time and spend time with your loved ones whilst you can in your bubbles.
That's brilliant advice, Simon. Thank you very much for sharing those. We've got another comment from Sarah here talking about how she thinks that some people are put off social media because of some of the stories they hear about trolling, me included. I just do Twitter, but it took me a while to get the confidence to use it. And I think that sort of reinforces what we were talking about before about confidence in engaging with these different things and platforms. Bookie, did you have another question for Simon or Jill?
Yes, it's again off piece, so I hope you don't mind. It's just how, obviously, inevitably, there will be some people who take exceptions to things that we may share, even if it is innocuous. So when you have, say, for example, people who may want to engage with you in ways in which are not negative, how do you handle the situation so it doesn't escalate into anything that is challenging and actually makes your experience of the platform negative? So if I pose that question to Jill first.
And yes, I hear a lot about negativity, and I do see examples of things that are aggressive or inappropriate. Some people who they can't let things go. They have to keep arguing and keep pushing. And I sometimes want to say, sometimes being right isn't the most important thing. Sometimes being kind or respectful is actually more important. My advice to everybody is to curate your professional learning network very carefully. And if people are saying things which are making you feel stressed or angry or upset, then don't follow them. Don't follow the people who tweet those comments that make you feel angry or distressed or whatever it is. Don't give them the oxygen. I don't mind. I want to follow people who I don't always agree with. That's healthy and invigorating. But if it isn't respectful debate, and if people I think they're belittling others, they're just trying to show how clever they are, then just don't engage. I really like the film Frozen, and I sing Let It Go in my head a lot. And I think it's the people who can't let it go who I think get sucked into these vortices. And it reminds me of, the Harry Potter Dementors who suck out your soul. If you're following someone on Twitter who sucks out your soul, for goodness sake, take control and stop following them.
Good point.
What do you think, Simon?
I totally agree. And I think, I agree exactly what Jill said. There's a distinction between being challenged and disrespected. I think it's good and healthy to be challenged sometimes because, it's good to challenge our own experiences and test our experiences. And so it's good to have that challenge. And sometimes the opposite, Twitter is especially, can become an echo chamber where people are following you because they like you and like what you're saying, they pat you back and everything, they agree all the time. It's nice, but it's not always healthy.
True.
But obviously, if it's something that's disrespectful, I would say you do exactly what you tell your children to do as part of safeguarding and cyber e-safety. You don't get involved, you don't respond, and you can block them. There's nothing wrong with blocking or muting people. There's even people on Twitter that I used to respect. I'm not going to name any names, but I used to highly respect, but I've started to use the platform to share emotive subjects just to get responses and just to increase their celebrity status, and it winds me up, so I just click on mute. They don't know I've muted them, and it's nothing wrong with doing that. It's not rude, it's just, but it's healthy, because otherwise you'll eat you up and it'll put you off using social media. So use the block button, use the mute button.
I think educators do a difficult job, and we need these platforms to lift us, not to grind us down. And if you are feeling ground down by what someone is tweeting, then you need not to follow them, because it's tough enough. Let's find ways of supporting ourselves rather than actually getting involved in the dark side. And I just think if more people unfollowed or blocked the negative people and didn't give them the oxygen, they would stop, because obviously they want followers, they want attention, they want airtime. So it's in our hands, really, but know when to rise above it. When I was ahead, I was constantly making the decision, do I tackle this or do I rise above it? You rise above a lot. There are some things you have to tackle, but let it go.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not every battle is worth having, is it? It's funny you mentioned the Dementor and the Frozen stuff. I do those too. I also remember a bit of Vic and Bob in that he wouldn't let it lie, and
never heard of that.
Add on to the muting and the blocking is
before my time.
Well, being 21, Simon, started teaching. That Boss Baby film is all about you, isn't it, Simon? I would just add to the muting and the blocking thing. There's a really good reporting feature on Twitter as well, and other social media platforms. If you are feeling like you're being abused in any way, please do make use of those reporting features. Not that I want to dwell on the negative sides of social media, but there are teacher-led organizations which have been developed to support people. Many women have spoken out in recent years about inappropriate, unsolicited messages via private message from men making inappropriate advances, all these sorts of things, and it's just not on. So please, use the tools that are available. Call out to your PLN. Simon shared something that I learned something from Simon just a week or so ago, actually. Look out for people who you trust in your PLN who've got an emoji in their profile with a hand in the air. Simon, do you want to explain what that means?
Yes, so if you find somebody in your PLN, that your personal learning or professional learning network on Twitter that has the raised hand at the end of the name, that means they're open for you to DM them, so send a direct message, and they're happy to reply and support you.
Oh, okay. Learned something. I didn't realise that.
Me too. Yeah, still learning.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. But please do, use those people that you know and trust in your PLN. If you're worried, then please do, get in touch with those people who can help and support you, because we wouldn't want anybody using this sort of platform. It's not good for you personally, and it's not good for the profession either. So please, use those features that have been mentioned, such as blocking, muting, and if it needs to, then get and report as well. But let's get back on some of the positive sides.
Yes.
Of all of these things.
Definitely, yeah. Sorry to turn the tone.
But as you'll tell from all of us, actually, so we've all known each other in one way, shape, or form for many, many years, and we would all say, I'm sure, as you've heard from us all evening, social media is a fantastic place to learn and share and develop and grow. So please don't think that a few isolated incidents do speak for the many amazing things that we see every single day on these various platforms. Jumping towards the end of the session now, but I want to jump into a question here about. I'll read it to you. I'll ask you first, Simon, if that's okay. Could you share, please, which blog, book, podcast, or vlog has made a difference to the way in which you engage with social media for your professional development?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, the first two were yours, Mark, ITT Evangelist. I am showing my age now. The other one was Teacher Toolkit. And I always remember that when I did my NQT year, it was really supportive, and we had some leaders that were sharing some really great ideas. And one of those was one of the ideas from Teacher Toolkit, the think, I can never remember it now, it's been a while. Pause, that's it, pause.
Mm-hmm. Bounce.
Pause, parents bounce.
Yeah.
And I love that, and I use it in one of my lessons, and you can imagine me, I pause for a long time, and I really get the effect. It was really fantastic, and I thought, these leaders at my school are fantastic. Where do they come up with these ideas? And then I joined Twitter, found social media, and I found the blog, on Teacher Toolkit, and I found some more ideas, and I thought these are fantastic. And then I started following you, Mark, as well, and looking at your blog, and that's where I came across the idea of digital leaders. And I set up my own digital leader in my school, and we had off the back of that, some of our students got to present at Bet Live on the Bet stage, and also work with local organisations as well. So those are the two ones that stand out for me.
Okay, fantastic.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Simon. Thank you for your kind comments about things that I've done. Thank you. It's very kind of you.
I'll share this actually. Sorry, a comment before Jill responds by Amy Flores. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name. And by the way, congratulations, Mark, on your now 56,000 followers on Twitter. That tells a lot about the kind of advice, support, and sharing you bring to the social media world. And I completely agree with her. Yeah, so congratulations on that. And yeah, here.
Thank you
Sorry,
very much.
Jill.
Okay, and I'm going to say two things quickly, and they do relate to blogs and books. But the first is just to say something about Women Ed, because obviously there's a website, there's a blog, there's a book. I contributed a chapter to the first book. The second one's just about to come out. But I mean, that has been an amazing, and it wouldn't have happened without Twitter, an amazing grassroots initiative and a network. We had the first book, he's mentioned it, global online unconference at the weekend, engaging with people all over the world, people who want to support women in education. And I think that has been transformative. It certainly has for me. And the other is SLT Chat, which I just love. I think it's such great learning to engage with SLT Chat between 8 and 8:30 on a Sunday night, talk about real live issues, share ideas and debates and views. And I remember one about managing difficult conversations a few years ago, and it was so brilliant, this half an hour focusing on that and good advice and do this and don't do that. I thought, for the person who's going into school to have one of those conversations tomorrow morning, this must be the best professional learning they could possibly have been exposed to. So Women Ed and SLT Chat, love you to bits.
Thank you. It's great to hear that, Jill. Actually, something I'm involved with both of those, so it's really good to hear about the impact they're actually making.
No, I completely agree. Say, Women Ed's been a fantastic initiative. I've obviously, it's weird for me as a man to try and get involved in the things with women. But I've been to a few events. I saw you, for example, one at Charlands Collegiate Academy, just near. But for your geography bookie, that's just north of London. But it is absolutely fantastic to see the way that it's grown and developed over the years, and I think it's the examples that you've all given really reinforce. We touched on negative things a few minutes ago, but it does really reinforce that absolute positivity and fantastic opportunities that are available when we choose to engage with and use social media. So thank you, Simon. Thank you, Jill, for your comments and for joining us this evening. How quickly the time goes.
I cannot believe it.
By. We're actually over time. We've had some more comments as well. We've got Nikki B, who's joined us and saying that you're all very inspiring. Thanks for a great and very interesting evening. So thank you for your comment there, Nikki. Thank you to Sarah and Amy and everyone else who's been sending through messages during the show this evening. We hope you find UK Edu Stories useful as well. It's an initiative we started back. I think our first episode was back in sort of February or March, but we wanted to sort of share, our ideas and tips and strategies to try and help you, educators, to try and support the very, very difficult job that you do. So thank you for the lovely comments, and I hope that you continue to watch us next week. Really excited to have a session next week looking at behaviour strategies that work. So if you're somebody who has got something that you think would be great to share, please do get in touch with myself and Bookie if you'd like to get involved in the show in that way. Or if you're looking for ideas on how to support behaviour in your classroom, positive behaviours, then please do join us again. Same time, same place next week. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It's either that side or that side. I always get it wrong. But one of those sides, there's a button which says subscribe, so please do subscribe. But for now, that's everything from me. Bookie, did you want to add anything else?
No, apart from thank you for an excellent, thanks to our guests again, as always. Thank you for your contributions and great insights. Thank you, Mark, for co-hosting, and I hope that everyone has a safe and enjoyable evening. Hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Everybody. Bye.